When I was 3 years old, my dad died in a car accident. I was too young to understand what that meant, but I remember the confusion, the crying, and the way my mom changed after that. It was like a light had gone out in her. She was suddenly a different person, not the warm, silly woman who used to braid my hair and sing to me before bed. Losing my dad broke her. I don't blame her for it. But I do remember how fast everything spiraled. She started drinking. At first, it was just a glass of wine with dinner, but then it became more. A glass turned into a bottle, and a bottle turned into her staying in bed all day with the curtains drawn. Then came the drugs. I don't remember when that started exactly, but I remember coming home from preschool and seeing strange people in the apartment. My clothes didn't always get washed. Sometimes we didn't have food. I started to feel scared all the time, even though I didn't know why. My dad's family noticed what was happening. They'd always been in our lives, even after my dad passed. My aunt, who's his sister, would visit every few weeks to check in. She started coming by more often. She'd bring groceries, make sure I had clean clothes, and try to talk to my mom, but it didn't help. Things got worse. There were nights when I'd be woken up by shouting or crying, and sometimes the police came. I didn't understand what was going on, but I knew it wasn't normal. Eventually, my aunt and uncle went to court to get custody of me. I didn't know that at the time, of course. I just remember one day being taken from my apartment by a social worker and driven to a new house. I was scared, but when I got there, my aunt opened the door and gave me a big hug. She told me I was going to stay with them for a while. Her husband, my uncle, was warm and kind. Their house smelled like cookies and laundry detergent. It felt safe. About a year later, my biological mother passed away. I was 4. I didn't understand what death really meant yet, but I knew I wasn't going back to live with her. By then, I had already started calling my aunt and uncle by their first names, but they felt like parents to me. They helped me with homework, tucked me in, and came to every school function. Over time, calling them mom and dad just felt natural. It started slowly. One day I just said, "Mom, look what I drew." And it stuck. They never corrected me. They just smiled. No one in the family had ever had an issue with it. In fact, they encouraged it. I think they were just happy to see me thriving and growing up in a stable, loving environment. So for years, they've been mom and dad to me, and I've always considered them that. Fast forward to this past Memorial Day weekend. I was 18 and had just finished high school. My family planned to get together at my grandparents' house, Mom's parents. They live on a 2-acre property that's perfect for big family events. There's always a BBQ, lawn games, and tons of laughter. It's the kind of place where you feel like you can breathe. This year, my cousin brought his new fiancée. I'd never met her before. From the moment she stepped out of the car, I could tell she was a lot. She was loud, overly friendly in a way that felt fake, and clearly wanted attention. She wore designer everything and kept mentioning how expensive it all was. I tried not to judge her. Maybe she was just nervous, but something about her rubbed me the wrong way. On Saturday afternoon, a bunch of us were sitting outside at the big picnic table. My mom, dad, my cousin, his fiancée, and his parents were all there. We were chatting and enjoying the sunshine when the fiancé looked at me and said, "It's crazy how much you look like your mom. You look nothing like your dad." I laughed a little awkwardly, and before I could respond, she turned to my dad and said, "You sure she's yours?" In a joking tone. The joke flopped hard. My dad gave a small, polite chuckle, clearly uncomfortable. My cousin looked embarrassed. My mom stepped in and said, "Well, she's my brother's daughter. He passed away when she was 3, and her mom couldn't take care of her, so we've been raising her." The fiancé blinked, looked at me, and said, "Oh, but you called them mom and dad a few minutes ago." "Yeah," I replied. There was a pause, and then she asked, "Why?" I was a little caught off guard. Because I can. It's what I want to call them." She wrinkled her nose and said, "But that's weird. They're not your mom and dad. I don't like it." I stared at her, stunned. I couldn't believe she said that out loud in front of everyone. My heart was racing, and my cheeks were hot. Everyone at the table went quiet. I took a breath and said, "Oh, okay. I'll make sure to write that down in my notes." The silence that followed was deafening. My cousin looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him. My dad shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. My mom gave me a supportive look. I stood up and excused myself, heading inside to hang out with my grandma, who always makes things feel better. I thought that would be the end of it, just a rude comment from someone who didn't know any better. But the next morning proved me wrong. I walked into the kitchen to get breakfast, and there was my mom, my grandparents, and, you guessed it, the fiancée. I walked up to my mom, gave her a hug, and said, "Good morning, Mom." The fiancée shot me a glare and said, "I already told you I don't like it when you call them that. They're your aunt and uncle, not your parents." My grandpa, who's usually a very calm man, looked up from his coffee and said, "It's none of your business what the girl calls them. Mind your own business." The tension in the room was thick. I stood frozen, unsure whether to respond or just leave. My mom gently squeezed my shoulder, and I sat down at the kitchen table. The fiancée didn't say another word to me the rest of the trip, but she kept giving me those weird, judgy looks whenever we were in the same room. I ignored her as best as I could, but it was hard not to feel awkward. Everyone else seemed to be tiptoeing around her, probably not wanting to cause drama. Later that day, I overheard my cousin talking to his mom. He was saying how embarrassed he was and that he didn't know why his fiancée was being so rude. His mom told him, "You need to have a serious talk with her. She can't come into our family acting like that." I felt bad for him. He's a good guy, and it sucks to see him stuck with someone who clearly has no empathy or tact. Hopefully, he takes that conversation seriously. When we left my grandparents' house at the end of the weekend, my mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "Don't ever let someone make you feel bad for loving us the way you do. We're your parents, no matter what anyone says." I nodded, holding back tears. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what biology says. Love is what makes a family. And my mom and dad, the people who raised me, cared for me, and never gave up on me, deserve that title. So to the fiancé who thinks it's weird or wrong for me to call them mom and dad, you don't get a say. You haven't walked in my shoes, you haven't lived my life, and you don't get to decide what family looks like for me. Now, I just hope my cousin figures that out before he says I do. After we got home, I tried to shake the whole thing off, but it stuck with me. Her words, her tone, like I was doing something wrong just by loving the people who raised me. I spent the evening curled up on the couch, flipping through old photo albums my mom kept on the shelf. Pictures of me with missing teeth and pigtails, holding up drawings with crayon-covered hands. My dad in the background, always with a goofy grin, usually caught mid-laugh. My mom, well, my aunt, but screw it, always had this look of calm and warmth. These were the people who tucked me in, cleaned my scraped knees, and cheered louder than anyone when I got my high school diploma. A few days later, I got a message from my cousin. "Hey, can we talk?" I figured he probably wanted to apologize or explain what was going on. I said sure, and we met at a small coffee shop near campus. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't been sleeping well, and before I even sat down, he blurted out, "I'm so sorry for everything." I waved it off and said, "You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." He shook his head. "No, I do. I didn't say anything when she said all that stuff. I should have shut it down immediately. I didn't expect her to act like that. She's been different lately, controlling, judgy. I don't know what's going on with her." I sipped my drink, choosing my words carefully. "You deserve someone who respects your family. You know that, right?" He nodded, eyes downcast. "I do. It's just hard. We've been together a while, and now I'm realizing she's not who I thought she was." I didn't say anything. He needed to come to his own conclusions, but I hoped he made the right call. Over the next few weeks, things settled down. I focused on getting ready for college in the fall. My parents helped me shop for dorm supplies, and my dad taught me how to change a tire, just in case. My mom cried when we packed up the car, even though I was only going a few hours away. But just as I was starting to feel normal again, something unexpected happened. I got a wedding invitation. It was my cousin's. He was still going through with it, and she was still going to be his bride. I stared at the envelope for a long time. My gut twisted. A part of me didn't want to go. I didn't want to see her, deal with her fake smiles, or risk another confrontation. But my mom gently reminded me that family shows up, even when it's uncomfortable. So I RSVP'd yes. The wedding was held at a fancy vineyard, the kind with strings of lights and way too many flowers. Everything was beautiful, picture perfect. But there was this tension in the air, like everyone was waiting for something to go wrong. I kept to myself mostly, sticking close to my parents. I did my best to avoid her. She was busy posing for pictures, bossing the wedding planner around, and making sure everyone knew how expensive her dress was. I watched my cousin from a distance. He looked like someone going through the motions, not someone excited to be marrying the love of his life. The ceremony started, and we all took our seats. As the officiant began speaking, I glanced at my mom. She smiled softly, holding my dad's hand. My heart swelled with gratitude. Whatever drama was happening around us, I knew I had something solid, something real. They said their vows. They kissed. Everyone clapped. At the reception, I tried to enjoy myself. I danced with my grandpa, who still had some serious moves for someone pushing 80. My dad made a ridiculous toast that had everyone laughing, and for a while, it felt like maybe things were okay. Until she cornered me near the dessert table. "So," she said, arms crossed, "I guess you're still calling them mom and dad, huh?" I turned slowly to face her. "Yep, that's what they are." She scoffed. "You know, you're just doing it for attention. It's weird. People talk about it, you know." That was it. I'd had enough. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Let me make something very clear. You don't know me. You don't know my story. You weren't there when I cried myself to sleep because my world had fallen apart. You weren't there when they picked up the pieces and gave me a real home. So no, you don't get to decide what I call them." She blinked, taken aback. I wasn't yelling, but my voice was firm, steady. I continued, "If you're uncomfortable with my relationship with my parents, that's your problem, not mine. And if my cousin wants to spend his life with someone who doesn't respect his family, that's his decision. But I won't apologize for loving the people who raised me." For once, she didn't have anything to say. I walked away, plate in hand, and sat back down next to my parents. My mom gave me a questioning look, and I just smiled. "Handled it," I whispered. A few months later, my cousin filed for divorce. I didn't gloat. I didn't say "I told you so." But I wasn't surprised. Sometimes people can only wear a mask for so long before the truth shows. He reached out again, not to rehash the past, but to say thank you for standing up for myself, for reminding him what real love and loyalty looked like. Now I'm in college. I call my parents every other day, sometimes just to tell them I made a new friend or that I finally did my laundry. They send me care packages, and we have a family group chat that's mostly just dad jokes and pictures of our dog in silly outfits. I think about that fiancée sometimes, about how quick she was to judge something she didn't understand. But I also think about how lucky I am. I lost my first family to tragedy, but I gained another through love. And no matter what anyone says, they're my mom and dad, forever.